It may not have started yet.
I believe it has. Mark, can you confirm? I can see it. The webinar is streaming on YouTube. Can you please confirm before we start the meeting?
Yes, I just did it.
Excellent.
Yeah, you can.
Thank you very much. We will call the meeting of April 1st at 4 p.m. This is the Baldwin Park City Council special meeting being heard through the audio method of Zoom and also being streamed to YouTube through our residents. I will ask at this time, the city council is closed today because of the coronavirus. We are taking these necessary steps to provide still the ability for our audience to hear what we are doing and what we are discussing. With that said, we are asking for all public communication to be sent in via email. There is an email link as to where that has to go. That will be at jayala@baldwinpark.com. That once again, that is jayala@baldwinpark.com. Please submit your comments by 4:10, we'll say 4:15 p.m. today, and we will make sure that the city clerk reads your questions, your comments during the meeting. At this time, I will ask if we can do a roll call, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Councilmember Alejandra Avila,
Here.
Councilmember Monica Garcia,
Here.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco, Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
Yeah, present. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Paul Hernandez.
Present.
Thank you. And Mayor Manuel Lozano.
He should be joining us later.
Perfect. Thank you. Once again, we will be moving into our open session, study session, and this is an update on COVID-19 by all directors. Shannon, do you want to take the lead, please?
Yes, thank you. So we've prepared an update from all directors on what is happening in the city. And we're going to go through that. Basically, though, as far as City Hall and all facilities, as you know, are closed. City Hall and administrative staff are working on a skeleton crew, going into only to City Hall as needed, working remotely as much as they can. Obviously, there's things that need to be done, processing invoices, we're retrieving messages, and we're processing the mail. HR is continuing the recruitments. We're doing that virtually. We're going to be setting up and have been setting up interview panels telephonically and by Zoom. We did have to postpone negotiations last week, but we've rescheduled those, and we will be meeting with the bargaining units through Zoom or other virtual meeting. The HR is very busy answering. There's a lot of questions from staff right now about overtime, paid leave, sick leave. So we are keeping in touch with staff that have those questions. We're also processing and answering questions on our guidelines and new policies for telecommuting, administrative leave, FMLA, and some of the new orders from the governor in regards to labor and labor law. IT is obviously very busy these days, configuring laptops for remote access. We've got 33 city staff working remotely. These are City Hall staff working remotely, City Hall and Rec staff working remotely by laptop and by phone. IT is providing support to them day and night, setting up virtual meetings. Planning Commission will be held virtually, and as we're doing now, City Council meetings as well as E-team and directors meetings. They also were very helpful in setting up a firewall and a router system for PD staff so that the chief could have 15 of his staff work from home. And that was a pretty good effort to get that done. And because they have a separate network and a firewall for their system, IT was able to set that up to allow them to access this Spillman. Originally, we had closed City Hall for 2 weeks. That's coming up the end of this week. We're going to put out a memo and a press release, and we're going to extend that until April 19th so that we're in compliance with the county's date and the county's order. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chief McLean, and he's going to update you on the police department and the emergency operations response. Chief?
Good evening. Everybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I want to start off with what are we doing to protect our officers and make sure that they have all the protocols and how to keep them safe and healthy. So I'll go through that. Last week, we were finally able to get 400 of the protective masks, the N95. Thank you, Chief Inman from the fire department who delivered that to us. So all our officers have those masks. We also have masks for anybody that goes in the back of our police car. We'll have a mask on them. We started something that was the first in San Gabriel Valley. Everybody that comes through the back door of the police department, we have our temperature taken. That's everybody. Not only when we're coming in, but at the end of the day, when we leave, we have our temperature taking. And as we sit here today, we're the only police department that does in the morning and when you leave. Other police departments are catching on. I believe there's 3 additional police departments that do it in the morning. And that protective measure has actually paid off in that we had last Saturday, we had an officer come to work, and before he even got in the building, we took his temperature, it was 100, and so we sent him home. And so we're doing that. We're cleaning the station top to bottom, every day, all day, focusing on all the doorknobs and all the high-risk areas, the kitchen, flat surfaces, computers, mouses, and that goes on all day. Every shift, we have our police cars desanitized on every shift. Thank you to Manny. We have his team, the police car pulls up, we have a team there, kind of looks like Ghostbusters. And they go with the inside of the car and the outside of the car, and we do that each and every day. We got gloves in the car, we have sanitizer in the car. In addition to that, we just ordered more protective suits, not only for the police department, but for the entire city. And we were hoping we'll get that in the next week. In addition, we're ordering goggles. In addition to that, we're ordering sanitizers that we can put on the perimeter of the police department. That way we can sanitize our hands before we hit that back door. If you can imagine throughout the door, 50 individuals turning that or putting their hand on the door, the kind of infection it could have. So we're gonna have them sanitize the outside of the building before they go in. In addition to that, we're looking at some shower pods, which we'll use as a decon shower. For example, it's just a little pod with 3 or 4 showers in it. And if you can imagine this, a police officer gets contaminated. I don't want that person in our police department. So they'd have the ability to go over to this pod that's stationed here at the PD, go inside, take a warm shower, change into a protective suit before they even come in the police department. So we're looking into that. We've had people actually send us wipes, hand sanitizer in the private sector. We've had Kaiser give us supplies because they I guess are getting a lot of donations, so they've given us supply. In addition to that, we're reminding our employees of the employee support services. There's a lot of fear in our community, and we're no different. There's some fear here with our officers, definitely with the families. Some of our officers are two-income families, and you can imagine their spouse got laid off, and so now you've got that stress and that financial burden. And so we're going to make sure that we make employee support service available to everybody on our team, particularly during this crisis. I think that's important. Every briefing, we've got our sergeant. In fact, we had Captain Finley go there the other night and talk about and drive home that 6-foot rule, constant hand sanitizing, use your mask if you feel you need to, and then just talking about all the recommendations from CDC, particularly in our line of business, how to keep yourself safe and healthy. We also had the fire department over 2 weeks ago, and they came over and gave us some training to all our personnel. Not only tips for us, but they talked about their protocols on what we can expect from the fire department, our brothers, if they get a call regarding COVID-19. Our dispatch center, from March 12th to March 31st, we've had 1,142 calls for service. And by the way, I might mention that our calls for service since March 12th have been reduced by almost 50%. We've had, out of the 1,142 calls, we've only had 4 calls related to COVID-19. That's it. Our officers have done 1,000 location checks. Now, yes, we're doing the traditional business checks, but we're also looking for people who are non-essential businesses trying to operate as an essential business, as well as being mindful that now that our businesses are closed, we may have a small segment of this community that might look at it as an opportunity to break into some of our businesses. And so we've been doing these checks all day and all night, and we've done at least 1,000 of them. Social media, we're still doing our best to, every day we've got these conference calls and we get updated information. And so it's critical that we update on our website to keep everybody current. We have gotten a little bit busier, more hits on our website, and we'll talk of that, I'm sure, at a later time. Our homeless outreach, every Friday, we have a team that goes out to contact our homeless. And what we do is we've got hygiene kits that we give them. We talk to them about COVID-19. In addition to that, there's 4 spots for the homeless like to congregate. And we've had toilets and washing stations at all 4 of those locations. And so that outreach will continue every Friday as long as the funding is there. Every day, we're on a conference call with all the stakeholders. We just had another one this meeting with the superintendent of the schools. In fact, yesterday, myself and Captain Finley went over there to the school, Baldwin Park High School, just for 2 hours to help pass out lunches to the kids and to the parents. Like I said, only for a couple hours. And the purpose was simple. We want the kids to know we care about them. We want the parents to know that their superintendent, that their educators and their law enforcement are communicating and coordinating and working together. And so I felt that was an important message to send. So we were only there for a couple hours. And I believe we handed out like 1,100 lunches. We've had meetings with the school district, water agency, Kaiser, faith-based organizations, Red Cross, in addition to almost daily conference calls with DMAC, LA County, Office of Emergency Management, LA County Public Health, state and federal agencies, as well as others. every week, in fact, today, myself and Jim Izzo went to all our big box stores. And what we do is we go inside to make sure that they're complying with the county order. And we've been doing this every other day. We've been doing it since the order went into effect. And just today we went into one store and they weren't doing a very good job. And so what we did is we just took it as an opportunity just to talk a little bit about the order and to give them recommendations on how to comply with the order. And they were absolutely receptive. Now, I would like to point out El Super, I believe it's called, in Vallarta. And they did an outstanding job. For example, they've got shields up to protect the cashiers from the public so that any spray or spit doesn't go across and affects anybody. They've got signs in English and Spanish everywhere. They've got sanitizers everywhere. And so I give Vallarta for sure now super high marks. The other stores definitely were in compliance. But overall, I'd say I was pretty pleased. Although I think that it's something that we need to continue to do. There was one store that is not an essential store, but they were selling, cup of noodles, whatever, to give the impression they were a central store. And I think that's something that we can't turn our head to. We got to jump on it, because if we don't, it's going to send a message that every other store, for example, a barbershop, can sell a cup of noodles, and that makes them an essential business, and it doesn't. So that's something that we need to talk about. In order to protect our officers and our staff, we've created a schedule. Last week, I came in here and it dawned on me that in any given day, I've got 40 to 50 people in this police department. And unacceptable. And so I asked the captain lieutenant to come up with a schedule where we could rotate our officers, where we could have a cadre of officers home for 10 days, essentially in a semi-quarantine. That way, if something happened here with the officers working, we'd have a fresh crew to come in, and we will keep that rotation going for the near future. Now, since we're going to have officers home as many as 15 at a time, I want to make sure that we're making good use of our time. So what we're doing is we're taking an opportunity for them to do online training. For example, how to handle suicide calls, first aid, CPR, how to utilize the AED, classes on gangs, identify theft for patrol, law enforcement response to terrorism, search warrant fundamentals, student learning outcomes. And so a lot of these classes are not only mandated, but these are classes that are going to help them do a better job and perform at a higher level. So we want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible and that they're not just home doing nothing. We want them educating themselves. But the main point is to have officers home. That way, if something happens here and everybody gets infected, we can bring them in, and then the other officers go into that quarantine stage. And so that began last week. We've reached out to our faith-based organizations, most of them the ones that wanted to meet with us. We've given them all flyers on COVID-19, hundreds of them, to pass out to their congregation. And we've had conference calls with them. For example, we just spoke to St. John's and Church of the Redeemer, because we wanted to find out is how often do you have these food banks, because that's going to become an issue down the road. We don't want to get a position that 2-3 weeks from now that our community's got to choose between paying the rent and putting food on the table. And so we're kind of reaching out to find out where we are in terms of resources. And St. John's, they've been getting food from the same food bank for the last 30 years. And they've got enough for several months. I'm sorry, that was Church of the Redeemer. St. John's, they've got enough for a couple of months, but they only do it weekly. So none of the churches are doing it consistently. And most of the churches pretty much taking care of their own congregation. And they keep it to Baldwin Park residents only. That's pretty much it. You know, our focus right now is there's anxiety with our officers, no question about it. You know, everybody walking around, and then we come in contact with people who've been exposed, and certainly that anxiety is there. And then you throw in the fact that by nature of what cops have to do, we're going to have incidents and situations that we're going to have to inject ourselves in that situation knowing that we could be contaminated. And so what we're trying to do is give them protocols and recommendations to keep themselves safe. And of course, they're going to have to use their good judgment as well. The last thing is REOC has been activated at the level 3. And so we're here at the PD, and this is for all the department heads, it's all the stakeholders. We're here to support the city in any aspect that they need. Whatever it is, we're here to support you. You come to us as a resource. And if we're not in a position to help you as a police department, we can certainly reach out and get those resources for you, because we're in contact with the county every single day. Sometimes it's hourly. So with that, I guess I'll leave it open to any questions anybody might have.
Thank you very much, Chief. Council members, any questions?
Yes, this is Manny. First of all, thank you, Chief, and thank all the police officers and of course
Manny,
all of City Hall, because this is more of a team effort, and so just want to pay my respect to everyone.
thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much. Any questions for the chief at this time from the council members?
This is Alejandra.
Yes, please.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that I appreciate everything the chief and the police department is out there doing. I know they're active every single day. So I want to let you know, Chief, Daniel, and all your department, that I truly appreciate what you're doing out there, putting yourself out there. I know your families, I'm sure, are worried about you every single day, as I worry about you. I just want to make sure that when you're out there visiting the stores and visiting the community, that you're also safe by wearing masks and wearing gloves. You're definitely essential to our community, and we appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Avila. One more thing that I forgot to mention, and I think I'll mention it because it's going to come up. And in the next 2 weeks, from everything that I've seen, and I watch all the news conferences, as I'm sure you do, and it appears that by April 14th, that's the day they're throwing out, towards the end of April, things could get really bad. And so here's a question that I ask my staff, and a question that I think that all the department heads should ask their staff. And here's the question that I asked. What decision do I need to make today, or in the next couple of days, to prepare for that worst case scenario? And I put that out to my entire team, and they came up with a couple of good recommendations. And so my request to the department heads is you have some talented people to work for you. Put out that same email. What is it that we can do as a department, Park and Recs, community development, today? What decisions can we make today to prepare 2 weeks from now? Because we don't want to get 2 weeks from now and then say, oh no, we didn't do this, we didn't anticipate this. And if you put that out to your entire team, you're going to be surprised at some of the recommendations that come on your team. So definitely I recommend that. The other thing is, we're going to get more calls about non-compliance, people having parties and people having barbecues, and that's going to happen. And so we've had a couple incidents. One was a barbecue. The other one was a family member had passed away, and the family was there for the passing. There was way too many of them. And so I think as a chief, I think it's important to be consistent across the San Gabriel Valley. So I spoke to the chief from the county to find out what is everybody else doing. And what I was told was the county of LA, the city of LA, on my teleconference today with all the chiefs in San Gabriel Valley, is the first course of action is going to be to solicit cooperation and continue to educate the community. And you would think that by now, everybody in this community knows everything about COVID-19 and what the protocols are. And that's not true. When I have a doctor greet me shaking my hand, so we're not there yet. We still need to educate. And the thing is, keeping the 6 foot distance, I find myself a lot as a chief breaking that rule because we're creatures of habit. It's not an instinct for me to do 6 foot and to do it instinctively. That'll happen when we do it over and over and over again, and we'll get better at it. And so that is a theme that we have to keep hammering to everybody, because the highest risk is that 6 foot. And so it's critical, but I don't think we're there yet. So we're going to continue to educate now. If someone is being reckless or someone wants to give us the finger, that's what that county ordinance is for. Now, the county ordinance, let's be clear, it's not a fine. It is a criminal act. It is a misdemeanor. 6 months in jail or $1,000 fine or both. So as a chief, I don't feel comfortable slamming that anybody with a criminal case at the beginning. A lot of people in our community are hurting, and it's going to get real hard. And a lot of people in our community have to determine between paying the rent and putting food on the table. And they don't need law enforcement putting a criminal case on them by hitting them with a misdemeanor citation. And quite frankly, as a new chief in Baldwin Park, I'm trying to build relationships and partnerships, and it doesn't help the call. Now, like I said, if somebody wants to be reckless, I got no problem putting that case on them. What I do recommend is adopting a policy and make an amendment to the proclamation, which we're in the process of doing, what gives us the ability to do an administrative cite. In other words, we can write them a ticket for $100 up to $500, depending on how many times we go there. So we have the county ordinance. If someone is being absolutely reckless, we can write that report for the misdemeanor. But I think it's a if there was ever a time that law enforcement needed to demonstrate compassion, it's now. And so I think that's the best course of action, is to try to solicit the cooperation the first time. If we go back the second time, it's a ticket. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, because we have to hold people accountable. This is not a joke. this is serious. But I still want that opportunity to solicit cooperation. And quite frankly, when you explain it to people and you point out that that grandmother that's sitting there in your living room could die from this, it really gets people thinking. So I don't think we've done a very good job in educating, but I don't think we're there yet. So as a chief, I'd like to warn them the first time. If we go back the second time, you're going to get a ticket. But I like the administrative fine. I like that option, as opposed to writing a report for a misdemeanor. And quite frankly, the last thing we need to do is to slam a criminal case on some of our community who are already under tremendous stress as it is. And that philosophy is pretty much consistent throughout LA County. I haven't spoken to one chief who has actually said that they've given a ticket. But I need to be clear. If you're reckless, you're going to get that. You're going to get that report, and you're going to be held accountable. But the first course of action, I think, should be to try to educate our community, because we're trying to educate ourselves. That's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Vice Mayor.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Chief, I definitely agree with the path that you're recommending. And could we consider on the first visit a warning, and then on the second visit a citation of, let's say, 500? If there is a will, and again, as you stated, for reckless or negligent behavior, then they face arrest and a misdemeanor.
Councilmember Garcia, can I ask if you can please restate your remarks? You broke up during the.
Okay, is that any better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I was just stating that I agree with the path that the chief would like to take with regard to enforcement. And I would ask that we consider on the first visit, let's say there is a party, there's a gathering that is not in compliance with the county's order. And I think we also may want to consider being very specific about any gatherings in our community and what they look like. But before we go to that subject, then we just starting with what the county has ordered. And if we see that there is non-compliance on the first visit, we would warn the party goers or, the individuals who are not being compliant. On the second visit, then it would be a fine of 500. And then if there is a will to go back the third time, up to 1,000 fine. But if after that, there's still resistance, there's a recklessness, negligence altogether, then, that we would consider the misdemeanor. I do agree that most people in our community are in compliance. They are taking this serious. Unfortunately, I did observe over the weekend that not everybody is taking this as serious. And I wonder if some of that behavior is coming from a dismissive mentality. But regardless, it's something that we need to, I think, enforce early on so that we discourage any other, individuals in the community who might be looking at, parties for whatever reason. And this isn't something that's just happening in our community. This is something that's happening, across the county and the state. So we're just trying to be responsible and do our part here in our community. So that would be my recommendation.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
One second. If we could ask Councilmember Pacheco to chime in, and then we'll allow for Councilmember Ayala after.
Vila.
Vila, sorry about that. Councilmember Pacheco.
Okay, okay, hold on. Can you guys hear me or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to thank the staff for doing an outstanding job, getting ahead of the curve and really working out with our community and getting the word out. Everything from what the police department does to all the food bank work that they have. I've heard a lot of the community is very happy about all the work that we're doing. And so hopefully we can continue down that path. I just wanted to see if we get the word out more on the food bank. Still, a lot of people don't know. I don't know, maybe more social media or put it out there a little bit more so people understand what's available to them. And I'm with the chief and Councilwoman Garcia on giving an opportunity and a chance to first educate somebody about the guidelines for the COVID-19 guidelines, and then start to be a little bit more harsh so that they can understand how the implications of ignoring those guidelines and what that can do. But I think education first before we start giving citations that could cause them even a deeper hardship. The second question I have for the city managers, is there any study done for what is the anticipated financial impact on the budget due to the business shutdowns? Maybe you could do a report later on to see what that looks like, maybe in the future. And with that, I just want to thank you all, doing a great job. Let's continue to move forward.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Pacheco. Councilmember Avila, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, I also agree with the chief. We definitely need to continue educating the community, which I know you have been doing, and definitely going out there the first time and giving them a warning. However, I think $500 as a fine, if they do have to come back for the second time, is a little steep to start with. So maybe we can start with 250, 300, 500 seems a little steep considering the fact that a lot of people are unemployed at this time. So that may be a little steep. I'm hoping that we don't have to go to going out there the third time and just the first time is enough. But we have to keep in mind that they are unemployed. Again, thank you again, Chief, for everything that you're doing, and all the staff, actually, Parks and Recreation. I know you're doing an amazing job providing the food for our seniors, the school district. Everybody's working collaboratively, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia, once again.
Vice Mayor, also include me there after council member.
Yes, and the Honorable Mayor has joined at approximately 4:45 p.m. Thank you.
Why don't we have the mayor speak? This way we all get our chance, and then I'll come back and chime in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I was on there earlier, but I had to move out of my office due to I guess the interference there. First of all, as I don't know if you guys heard me earlier, I want to thank the chief and thank all the police department as well as all the city hall employees for the phenomenal job. And of course, an extension goes out to all the nonprofit organizations that have been supplying food on a daily basis, a weekly basis throughout the community. So it's really helped out a lot. As far as the fine this weekend, as most of you may or may not know, there was a party that was being held off of Main. I mean, a lot of people were there. Police department did a good job. But as far as the $500 fine, I think that is excellent. That will send a very clear message. And of course, the police department would forewarn the party goers or whatever the case may be what the fine is. So that should send a very clear message to everyone. Yes, I understand everyone's unemployed, but at the same time, we also need to understand that this literally causes lives. One person gets affected, 5, 10, 15. The hospital that I work at right now, working very hard, the doctors, the nurses here, and if you could only see what's happening inside this hospital, you would understand why the fine of 500 makes a big difference. So we need to definitely support that for now. And I understand what Councilmember Alejandra Avila is saying. Yes, they're unemployed, but this is extremely serious. It could literally cost the tragedy among a whole entire family, let alone friends or loved ones that may be around congregating when we know they should not be doing so. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia, please.
Thank you. So I Mayor, do you want to make the motion and I'll second that?
Vice Mayor. Okay.
Councilmember
At this
Garcia,
point, I'll
could
go
you
ahead and
repeat
make
that
a
again?
motion. What is other way?
Okay, if that's a motion, Mayor, then I will second that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so if that's your motion, then I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll ask if we can do a roll call, please.
Mayor Lozano,
Yes.
Councilmember Monica Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Paul Hernandez,
Yes.
and Councilmember Alejandra Avila.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to also ask if it's okay, let me take the opportunity to ask our chief, since we're on the topic of public safety. Well, this is actually a conversation, I think, for the city, not just public safety, but that we had as of today, we have our third case confirmed in the city of Baldwin Park. We had our first 2 yesterday. And so what I've seen with other communities is, kind of like a daily increase for the most part. And so I do like the way that the chief presented the question of, where should we plan to be in 2 to 3 weeks? And what does that mean for the actions that we take today and in the coming days so that we can best prepare? And so along those lines, I know that one topic we have discussed at the last council meeting, and I think that we were all saying the same thing, was regarding food. And I really want to recognize all the efforts, all the early swift actions that were taken across the city departments, public safety and HR and recreation and community services with the meal delivery, the collaboration with the school district, and all of it from every level of our government. Everybody responded very quickly. And so I just really want to applaud all those efforts. And so I think that the next phase of that is looking at those families that may fall in between. They may not be seniors. Maybe they have children in the school district. Maybe they don't. And so, but maybe they're in a financial position, and we're going to experience this more because of the layoffs and furloughs and everything that we're seeing in our economy. So the question is, how do we plan to provide for the food? Individuals who didn't even have the money to go out and buy groceries last week. And I do appreciate that there are churches in our community that are feeding, are helping to feed our community. But I think we're going to have to really think of a plan that is a little bit more, it's based on our levels of poverty here in the city, what we can expect. And I don't know how we get there. I think maybe by looking at data through our recreation and community services, any families that are already receiving a support, through meals or, the free lunch program, or, those that even qualify for supplemental, the reduced program, the reduced fee programs and things like that. Maybe we could base it off of that. But I do think that we need to start planning for families that might be hungry in our community today and even in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And what does that effort look like?
Thank you very much. Mr. Shannon Yahtzee, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council. And that, Councilmember Garcia, that is something we are thinking about now. We're in a couple things we've got going. We are in discussions with the state representatives, and you may have heard that the state is looking at using the National Guard to distribute not only food, but other possible supplies. And what they'll call that a pod, a point of distribution. And it's possible, and I've requested information if the city's interested, how could we get a pod in or near our city to serve our residents? So that's one thing we're looking at. We also just got notification from the federal stimulus that the city will be getting. I think Ben will talk about the exact amount. It's approximately $560,000 in additional CDBG monies, which should be available within 30 days. And they have removed the 15% cap on service groups. So that means potentially the entire amount could be used for food banks or for assisting the community in one way or another. So that's something that I know Ben and his staff are looking at very closely, and we'll be looking at bringing back that information to you very soon to get some decisions going on the expenditures of those funds.
Okay, great. Thanks,
May-
Shannon. And some I don't mean to monopolize this. I'll share the space with others. But really quickly, some thoughts that I had around that would be even possibly establishing a hotline in the city for city residents, and being able to assess, what age group, so that we would know if this is a senior who needs assistance, are they already receiving the meal delivery for seniors? If it's, families that have students, are they receiving? And then what, how could we supplement the need in that family? And also, considering vouchers, because I can only imagine the logistics that it would require for the city to establish like a food bank and to have the food delivered, and all the logistics involved with that if we are not already equipped. And so perhaps there would be some kind of voucher that we could consider. So those were just some thoughts that I had, and I wanted to share in addition to working with the nonprofits. And I know we don't have many nonprofits, but working with community partners like the churches and the school district, but just to increase our capacity.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Councilmember Avila, please.
Thank you. Yes, so thank you. So at the last meeting, I did ask about having a contingency plan. And at the time, I do recall asking, maybe this is a question for Daniel, is there any way we can take over a supermarket, meaning that the city purchases everything from the supermarket, and that's what we use to feed our families once we determine which are the families that are in need. Daniel, maybe you can help me with this. Again, take over the supermarket. We would pay for the food, but it would be run by the city so that we can feed our families. I don't know if that's something that maybe we can look into, and we would be able to provide for everybody, because the supermarket would still be getting their deliveries as usual. And we would just make sure everything gets distributed to our families in need.
Thank you, Councilmember Avila. I don't believe Daniel's on the call necessarily, but we can certainly ask Chief McLean to chime in on that after I'm done here. One thing that we could possibly look at is a mass feeding plan. FEMA has these type of outlines and plans in which I think might be able to provide some gaps in some structure as we begin to look at feeding, our individuals here in Baldwin Park. So I'll also ask for the chief, also Mr. Manny Carrillo, and again, Shannon and Ben to also look at the FEMA's mass feeding plans. The city of Los Angeles also has an annex on that that looks at what it would take to feed 750,000 people. Of course, we can scale that down and be able to provide some sort of action plan So my ask to staff will be is if we can begin, developing if the council could please see a draft plan within 10 days, that would be terrific, at least on my part.
Okay, well, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, please.
Yes, I also just want to, I'm not certain but what the contact is, or we're in contact with Kaiser to use the community center or the gym as a potential backup for patients, hypothetically speaking, of course, and or that could also be used for storage of foods or what have you. Just kind of tossing that out for everyone. It could be either or.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
just
Mayor.
think if we were able to get a supermarket, it would just make it a lot easier. We don't have to worry about where we're going to store it. It's already set up for storing the food. So again, something to think about, something to look into. It may work. It may work really well for us.
Thank you, Councilmember Avila. We certainly will, as stated, we'll ask the staff to come back with that plan, hopefully in the next 10 days, if that's something that we could all agree to.
Vice Mayor. So
Councilmember.
now that we've had the conversation about the food banks, and I agree with the idea of having the plan come back and then we can review that based on what is already happening and what's the city E-team is already projecting and looking towards. Along with what the mayor was saying, as far as our community center, I heard Shannon talking about the pod, the point of distribution. And so Shannon, I guess my question would be along the lines of a pod. I mean, could in the community center, would it make sense to even consider using that for, would we have, and this is for staff to chime in. I'm going to say this and then just let you guys talk, but for the testing, for maybe additional tests, are we even able to purchase tests, perhaps working with the county, or what does that look like? I know that LA City and LA County are putting funds together to serve LA City residents. And today I was listening to the LA County briefing by Dr. Barbara Ferrer, and she was acknowledging that San Gabriel Valley may not have, same access as some of the other communities across LA County. And so is that something that we need to start looking at here at the City of Baldwin Park, knowing that we have a population that has, different levels of income, but also we serve low income populations. And so are they able to access, testing and things like that? So do we want to start looking at that and maybe chime into the point of distribution and create some testing here, purchasing some tests, maybe with these FEMA funds or whatever funds are available to us? Is that something that we should be looking at for the next, let's say 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks out, so that we can better serve our residents? And I think that's pretty much, those are the questions that I had.
Shannon?
So we have been opening up communications with the school district and brainstorming with staff to talk about what facilities could be used for a pod. And that's also going to depend on, the needs of the state or the National Guard, if we can provide a facility that meets their needs. But we've talked about the community center, the adult school, possibly one of the high school gymnasiums. So we are continually talking about that. I know Daniel did have information on the testing for those without health insurance, but I will talk with him and the chief more about actual test kits and if there's a need for us to purchase those.
And that's good. I do think that, if we get in line and we are part of the solution on a broader scale, that's not a bad thing. I think what I want to know is how we're advocating for our residents here in Baldwin Park, because we're not, the city of Los Angeles, and I recognize that, but what are there are there any steps that we are taking or that we can take so that we could secure some of those tests to make them available to our residents? And if we're part of a larger solution, then, you know, we'll look at that too. But I guess what I'm focused on and what I'm asking is, how are we really going to advocate for our residents here, especially those that don't have access to testing?
I think we need to get that information to them, and I think we can get with Daniel and get that information out more to the community. I think we need to look in, you know, the issue of the test kit. It's not just a test kit itself. There's more to it. A healthcare professional has to actually do the swabbing, package it up properly. It has to go to a lab. It has to be processed. So there's a whole routine involved in that. So there's more than just you know, obtaining the kits. But we'll definitely look into it and actually and definitely look into getting the word out more to our residents on what they can do to get tested. And right now, again, they're only recommending that people who have the symptoms, first of all, if you have the symptoms, the sore throat, the fever, the cough, the shortness of breath, the first thing to do is to call your healthcare provider. And if you don't have a healthcare provider, you can call your local emergency room. But they want you to check in by phone first and not just show up. And they only want people that have those facilities and get referred to or by to come in and then actually do that test, because they also don't want to overwhelm the system and have healthy people going in to get the tests. So we'll definitely look into that, and we'll put together more information on that. And,
yeah, and if I could just, can I just address, I know that it's not just about purchasing tests. I know that's why I'm saying, what are we doing in collaboration with the county to advocate for our residents? And what I heard Dr. Ferrer say today is that they do recognize that there is need in the San Gabriel Valley. That suggests to me that they are looking at the San Gabriel Valley and possibly cities in the San Gabriel Valley where they can, you know, fill some gaps. And so I do recognize that you don't buy a test and test yourself at home. There's a lot more that comes, you know, that is involved with that. And it's basically, you know, working with the county to understand where are they, like, yeah, there has been a demand issue. And so these tests are being prioritized based on the protocols that they've set. But as they start to allocate resources, as they get more resources, because, you know, that's what they're working on right now. Where are we in line? How are we in line to advocate for our residents? And that's really what this, you know, continues to come down to. And I'll leave it at that.
Let me just say really quick, as an example, I'll start about that, Vice Mayor. City of Linwood, I believe either by this Friday, no later than next Tuesday, the hospital itself will be open for individuals to come in here. As was stated, it's no different than what Shannon shared, by appointment. You just can't simply come in here. You have to demonstrate that you have those particular types of symptoms, so they'll be able to swab you and have the results within 45 minutes. Now, the question here is we need to ask Kaiser to find out if Kaiser is going to launch off a similar type of program. This is happening throughout the state, of course, so it depends on how fast those funds and the equipment that get shipped out to these various hospitals, because that's what will be occurring here at this hospital. We do get like literally hundreds of people that come here with symptoms. They'll have them go through the process. Right now, in some cases, it's about 3 days to 5 days before you actually get the results. So they're improving the time on a daily basis, not only here, but throughout the state. So we definitely need to be in contact with Kaiser to see if they're going to kick off a similar type of program based on those criteria, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shannon, and this is also for the chief. Again, if, you know, echoing the comments that Councilmember Garcia mentioned, you know, if we can directly ask or put in a request through the DMAC and understand what the process is to get ahead of the line, and, you know, understand the needs of our area, not only of our city, but of the other communities that are our neighbors, then we could have a much better understanding as to, you know, how that will look like, or what that might look like as people are looking at for, you know, points of distribution and vice versa.
Yes, we can definitely contact not only the county health, but Kaiser and the area D and get more information on that.
Has them down. Drive-through testing.
March 35.
Yeah, March 31st. They did drive-through testing like we do.
This is Chief.
Go on, Chief.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you're live.
Yeah, yes, I'll comment on that. And if we could we digress and get back to my thoughts on the food distribution?
Yes, sir, please.
Just recently, they had drive-by testing in a city for the community. And
What city? Just to be clear.
I believe it was Lakeview Terrace on the 31st. And there's no reason why, if it's good enough for another city, it's good enough for our city. And there's no reason in 2020 that we can't do the same thing here, where people pull up and they do the swab. They did it there, and so we can do it here.
Yes, thank you very much. So again, just echoing everyone's comments and again, mine, can we please just, circle back with area D and understand what that process is, and along with the county health to see how we can do that and what that looks like and what's all the pieces that surround doing something like that, either in our city or some other facility near us.
Yes, absolutely. That's the process, and we'll definitely do that. Is it okay to comment on the food distribution?
By all means, sir, please.
Okay, so in terms of churches and the food giveaway, there's not enough food out there, and it's not consistent enough. And we have people right now in our community who got to decide between the rent and food. And it's not something that's going to happen 2 or 3 weeks from now. It's happening right now. There's no doubt in my mind. And so, yes, the federal government is set up to do mass distribution, and who knows how long that will take or how long it'll last. But in the city, I think we all agree that it's our obligation to take care of our own community. And Councilmember Garcia had mentioned the vouchers. Now, I know we budgets are always tight, but we save for a rainy day. And I can't think of a rainier day than what's going to go down 2-3 weeks from now. And so I don't think we have the luxury of time. We could go to we have several community or home-based stores owned by locals. And we have an opportunity not only to take care of our community, the most vulnerable, but at the same time support those businesses. So we could partner with them at a discount, and we could narrow down specifically who needs it the most. And through voucher, we could make sure that consistently, not when the food bank builds up or when they get another container in at San Pedro, whatever, but consistently make sure that our community has something to eat at the table. That's the basic foundation of staying healthy. If you don't have food in your gut, you can't stay healthy. So I think that we need to get all the stakeholders in the room, the nonprofits who can do the food banks. But I think that we really do need to think about the vouchers and partnering with the stores and be able to support them and take care of our community at the same time. And some of that money might even be reimbursable, I don't know, but I don't think we should wait on the federal government for anything, quite frankly.
Thank you, Chief. Greatly appreciate your comments, and I think we all agree with those. Again, I'm going to reiterate is, for staff to please, develop a plan of what that looks like. What that looks like, within the short period of time here, whether it's vouchers or acquiring a store or whatever the case may be. What is the quickest, timeliest, and more importantly, feasible approach that we can do this? One of my concerns is as it would be is, As long as, if we're partnering with one of the local facilities that we have, that we're not necessarily buying out everything from them, because then that's going to create food shortages that we are creating to feed, a handful of people, where the rest of our community are still seeking, certain products and so forth. So that's something, again, that goes into the conversations that you all will be taking and doing for all of us. And, again, I'd like to hear what that planned and what that looks like, instead of just discussions. I really want to see I think we've all talked about what an action plan is, and start seeing this in paper and having those discussions, sooner than later.
Vice Mayor, if I can, I just want to, underscore the comments that were made by the chief. I agree with everything that you said, Chief. And I do think that, one of the reasons why we really do need to be proactive in thinking over the next 2 to 3, 4 weeks is because once things start to get really a little bit chaotic, right? There's a greater demand than there are supplies. And I mean, we're already seeing it with LA County, where early on they were able to describe in depth the cases, and the numbers are going to start to rise. And so it's just going to be, what we can put together. And my concern is I don't want to get left out, because we are a smaller city in LA County. And because we, we were at 0 cases a few days ago, 3 cases today. We don't know where we're going to be in comparison to other communities. But I just want to make sure that, we're advocating, we're doing everything that we can to be self-sufficient here in our city. Because once that apex and that peak hits, I don't want us to be scurrying and saying, well, there's not enough for us, there's not enough for our residents. And, the harsh realities is that even if we get in line now and we start to plan ahead, we may not be able to provide, what our city needs. And but wherever we can, let's think about that now. And, of course, the healthcare system is going to be at the forefront of all of it. And so, whatever we can do to supplement that here in our city, I think we'll be better positioned for it.
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Garcia. With that said, we will move on to the Recreation and Community Services. Mr. Manny Carrillo, for your report, please, and comments.
All righty. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the City Council. Everyone hear me?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. The discussion we're having is a great collaboration, brainstorming, and I'm sure we will fine tune our plan even better than what we're currently doing. In the Department of Recreation Community Services, we are like all other departments. We are staffing at essential staffing only. For the most part, all administrative staff are telecommuting. We have several staff going in on a daily basis. For example, the facility maintenance division, we only have 2 full-time staff members. So they are alternating every other week or every other day. This week, they are both coming in 4 times this week, just because there's so much work that needs to be done, and we have so little staff. But we are doing everything we can in regards to all of the administrative staff. We are conducting business as usual, having Zoom conference calls. We had a staff meeting today for the first time on Zoom. We've had ET meetings. I'm also conducting staff meetings with the part-time staff. We are assisting Baldwin Park Unified School District with the meal program twice a week. We have approximately 9 staff members assisting twice a week from 10:30 to 1, and they're dispersing meals at 2 sites, I believe Jones and Birch. Large amount of our time we are working on community outreach. We are assisting with creating the billboard that's currently up. I'm proud to say that was created in less than 24 hours and posted a few hours later on the electronic billboard. We are maintaining the social media accounts for the city: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and we had a request from Shannon in regards to analytical report. We should have that done first thing tomorrow morning. Police department already completed theirs, and we are just crunching the numbers, but it does look by early reports that our social media is definitely picking up traction. In regards to outreach, we've expanded our hygiene services for people experiencing homelessness within Los Angeles County and the city of Baldwin Park. We are working with the food banks. We've created a flyer that we posted on social media, as well as the website of the food pantries within the community. We have had some very good luck early on from an agency in Monrovia, as well as Church of the Redeemer. They've given us some great boxes of food. So we are collectively working with the nonprofits. Generally speaking, my reference is California Parks and Recreation Society, working closely with LA County Parks and Recreation, as well as some of my colleagues locally. We've posted social distance signs on all of the restrooms and throughout the park. We're working on lawn signs that we should have up by the end of the week, similar to our census or a for sale sign, promoting social distance. So hopefully we will have those by the end of the week. We completed the Baldwin Park Now, the April-May edition, and that's up on our website, and everyone who lives in Baldwin Park should have it by this weekend. If not, if they haven't received it yet, we received our hard copies on Monday, so they're taken to the post office on Monday, so we should have them dispersed soon. In regards to facility maintenance, we've been very busy. As the chief mentioned, we are disinfecting high-touch areas and the police cars at 5 a.m., 7 days a week, as well as 5 p.m., as well as various parts of City Hall, the police station, the jail, the community center, and all the high-touch areas. We are definitely trying to take care of our staff members and keeping them safe and healthy. We mentioned financial burden for the residents. I'd also like to call to the attention of the council members. My part-time staff members are very concerned about their employment, but I've assured them they're going to be compensated for their base hours based on the direction that I received. So they're very, very pleased with that. And we are definitely trying to keep our part-time staff busy. We have numerous projects that we're having them assist with. They're assisting with the preventative maintenance. We are conducting special projects at the community center, disinfecting high-touch areas. We cleaned all doorknobs, the boxing gym, the weight room, the basketball gym, the technology center, all of the vehicles within the department's fleet. So we're definitely coordinating a lot of those aspects, as well as reservations. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel some reservations. So all of the ones starting from March 19th currently, and we've canceled all the way through the mid-April, and we will most likely cancel probably 4 to 6 weeks out from that point. We are working closely with the YWCA of San Gabriel Valley. We dispersed 150 meals today, as well as boxes of food from Church of the Redeemer and Foothill Unity Center. So that was fantastic. As I mentioned before, we've been very fortunate with the food bank. We're receiving lots of supplemental baskets of food. So that's great. And we are conducting a survey of all of the nonprofits and churches. Unfortunately, a lot of them are closed down right now. We have a handful that are open, and we're trying to build capacity with them. So I've taken down some pretty good notes in regards to Councilmember Garcia's comments in regards to building capacity for food vouchers and or food, as well as all the other council members and mayor. So we are working closely with all of our vendors. The 4th of July vendor, I had for the fireworks, I had a conversation with the owner of the company today. So he is going to send me an addendum for the agreement. I have not presented that to the city council yet. I have to work with the city attorney to make sure we have an out just in case if 4th of July is canceled. That will be going to a future city council meeting. And we're also working with LA County LASHA in regards to the grants that we've received and trying to improve the quality of life for the Baldwin Park residents. As I mentioned, we are conducting all the city business. We had a meeting last week with LA County Flood Control, Public Works, in regards to the grant, the Prop 68 grant that we had received. So although a lot of our focus has been on COVID, we are still trying to take care of the other elements throughout the city. We are processing all of the refunds for the reservations, responding to emails and phone calls, and all the different staff members. So generally speaking, I am very proud of the department. They have been working very effectively and efficiently under the conditions. And I think that is all I have in regards to the Recreation Community Service Department. If you should have any questions, would you like me to expand on any of them? I'd be more than happy to do that.
Really quick. Manny, can you update me, and just for the public that's hearing, can you remind us where all the washing stations, the 4 locations we have?
The washing stations, I do not have the specific locations. I would need to defer to the police department. They actually went out and selected the locations. We coordinated with the vendor, but they actually pointed them out. I could share with you that we do have a washing station and an outdoor restroom at Morgan Park, and we do have one adjacent to Walmart. And Chief or Daniel, if you could expand on the other locations.
Yes, I can. Real quick, I just want to thank Manny and his team. They have just been phenomenal. I know that they're a lot of them are overworked, but they've just done a phenomenal job in helping the police department out. And I just really need to, not only him, but everybody, but Manny specifically, because I see him out there at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's cold out there. It's no joke. And to see them, taking care of the officers and doing it such a good job. And so I really appreciate Manny, but even more so those that work for you. And yes, we do have those locations. We've got 4 locations. We've got a toilet and a washing bay, Morgan Park, Dalton and Merced. We've got at Cloverleaf, and in Washington at Ramona. Yeah, those 4, Morgan Park, Bill Dalton and Merced, Washington and Cloverleaf, and Washington at Ramona, those 4 locations. And we picked those because that's where most of the homeless congregate.
Thank you. Have you seen those being used? How are they, our homeless population doing with this? Have you seen a lot of people there?
Yes, they definitely using them, although they like to walk away with the toilet paper as the rest of us do. And they're also cleaning them twice a week. They're being maintained and cleaned twice a week, which is critical. And also we've got the COVID flyers on the stations. In other words, what is COVID, how to protect yourself, how to keep yourself clean. We've got the disclaimers at all 4 locations.
And
Okay.
if I could interject, those posters are up also on the bus shelters as well as throughout the porta potties and city hall and all other public facilities. And
Thank
I'd
you. Thank-
also, yeah, excuse me, and I'd also like to thank Shannon, city council members, and all the departments. I'm very proud. I've been with the city for a number of years, and I have never seen the city work so efficiently and effectively. So kudos to all.
I couldn't agree with you more, Manny. And I want to also thank you and your staff. And like you said, everybody within our city, everybody that works for our city has been doing an exemplary job at everything, making sure that the community is being informed, that our homeless population is being taken care of, that we're safe, and we're all working together for the benefit of everybody. So again, thank you, Manny, for everything you're doing, and thank you, council members and all staff members.
Mayor?
Mr. Chaco?
Oh, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. To our public, to Manny Carrillo, do you see that, I know you guys are doing the food banks. Is there any food that's left over, or is there enough people picking up all the food that you have at your food banks?
We actually have dispersed all of the food. Some of it is perishable, but a lot of it is also boxed food, canned goods. But as soon as we receive it, we disperse it. So today we probably passed out over 300 boxes of food, if not closer to 500. I mean, so we, as fast as we receive it, we disperse it.
Okay, and where are we getting the food from?
We are receiving the food. It's kind of funny you asked that. It appears that we are receiving the food from LA County or Los Angeles Food Bank. We're just receiving it from different agencies. One agency in Monrovia, and then the other agency from Church of the Redeemer. So the verification and paperwork that we need to complete is identical.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Carrillo, this is Paul Hernandez. Two items. Can you just share with us, how the senior program, the senior feeding program is going? Have that gone to 100% delivery? If not, what are we doing about that? And my second question is, what is LASA's strategy to help the individuals that are experiencing homeless in our community to get off the streets now more than ever? Do you know if they're coming into, the San Gabriel Valley, but more importantly into Baldwin Park? What's their strategy? What's their timeline? What plan of action are they expected to be doing to get, the individuals off the streets?
Yes, I'll be more than happy to respond to that. In regards to the YWCA Senior Meal Program, we have gone to 100% home delivery. The first week we had the seniors line up, and that worked out very well. But right after that, the following day, we initiated the home delivery program, and I thought we were going to hit some speed bumps, but it went actually perfect. We had about 10 staff members break up the food, and we dropped it all off within 90 to 120 minutes, and it worked out very well. This week, as I mentioned before, we were able to disperse several boxes of food. So the residents or the seniors were extremely happy when we gave them 5 meals, frozen meals, and then several boxes of food with perishables and things of that nature. In regards to the LASHA program, they are in the community, boots on the ground, interacting with the homeless population. I need to get more specifics, but from my understanding, talking to county staff members earlier today, there's several shelters. There's one in La Puente, very close to us. I think it's at San Antonio Park, and they are keeping that open longer than anticipated. It was supposed to close pretty soon, and now it's been extended. But I will get more information in regards to LASHA's strategies in regards to how they're going to deal with that, unless Daniel or the chief has updated information in regards to that topic.
I do got a couple. Lhasa goes with us on Fridays when we go and reach out to the homeless. Lhasa goes with us.
Thank you very much. And then following up on the senior meals, Manny, do we have capacity to expand and add more people to that? And do you know what that number would be?
We have reached maximum capacity for the YWCA lunch program. We've initiated conversation in terms of if we want to serve X amount of meals, what is the price tag? So they have not shared the numbers with us. I was just informed earlier today that they think it's not 100%, but they think they've reached the amount or our allocation of what we could serve.
Thank you. Any other council members for Mr. Carrillo?
Yes, Vice Mayor, I just wanted to add, recommend that if any other council members have an opportunity to go see the operation that they have over at the Church of the Redeemer. I was there with City Clerk, Ms. Jean M. Ayala. They bought this conveyor system. I mean, they have a whole assembly operation there. And I'll tell you, they really do go all the way out. We want to thank not only the Church of the Redeemer, but all the churches that are involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Anybody else? Otherwise, we will move on with Personnel Department.
Vice Mayor,
Ms.
really quick,
Garcia.
I just wanted to give a lot of kudos to Manny Carrillo and his team. And I mean, everybody across the city. I just really appreciate all of your efforts. And I just want to, applaud all of you for acting so quickly and just really going above and beyond in so many ways. So definitely want to say thank you, Manny, to you and your staff. But really that applies to all of the E-team and at every level, every staff member that has just jumped to the occasion. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ywca.
Yes, so I briefly covered HR. If you have any questions on that, Laura's here to answer those, but we are proceeding with negotiations, although those will be virtual, and we are proceeding with also hiring vacancies. But again, we're doing that all with proper social distancing and doing that virtually. And unless you have any other questions regarding HR, we could move on to Public Works and then Community Development.
Yeah, can you send the council the vacancies and the hiring? How many are we looking at? What positions? I'm kind of curious.
So right now we are filling. My page closed. Laura, do you have the vacancies you're recruiting now?
Oh, Shannon, that's fine. Just
Yes.
send it out to the council. Just send it
We
out
can
to
send it to you, sure.
Could you please? The only reason
Uh-huh.
I'm saying, because of the fact that we're facing all this crisis, I want to make sure that we're not overhiring and end up in some kind of a deficit. But if you could just send that out to the council members, that's fine.
Correct. And we're looking at these as essential functions that we need to keep different processes moving within the city. But we will get you that.
Sorry about there, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Garcia.
Okay. So Shannon, I think it is a good idea to share that with us before any action is taken, or to let us know what the status is, because I do think that we are going to be hurt, with the decrease in revenues. And so I do want to understand, like, who are the essential, how have they been identified, and so on and so forth. Only because I think once we're through, once we're over the peak period, there's just so much uncertainty. And so, the question is, are we in a position to hire, or should we kind of put a freeze on that and then, explore that maybe 2 months from now? I don't know, but I guess I want to understand the plan more. And then in addition to that, can you tell us, I know that there are some staff members that are reporting that are in City Hall, and then some that are working at home and telecommuting. So can you give us a picture of what that looks like?
Yes, so as far as the third floor, again, it's a very skeleton crew. We may have Rosa Caballero come in half a day, a couple days a week to take care of some items. We do have HR staff coming in on a rotating schedule, so there's one there at a time. And I believe Ben has one or two people in housing that need to come in part-time. On the second floor, and Rose can expand more on this, but Rose needs to keep the accounting functions and the payroll functions going, and she's sort of alternating the weeks. So when it's payroll week, she'll have the payroll staff come in because we need to keep everybody paid, and then alternating weeks, she'll have accounting staff come in. But again, those are just a skeleton crew. Again, planning, public works, building and safety, all are just very minimal. They're trying to work with any developers who are still processing plans and want to keep processing plans or inspections to get those done, but it's all being done electronically without really having anybody come into City Hall.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay.
And please continue, Ms. Garcia.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Shannon, in regards to the list that you're sending us, are any of those essential positions part-time positions, or are these all full-time positions, just out of curiosity? Shannon, did we lose you?
I'm sorry, I had the mute on. I believe they're full-time. I had the document open and my laptop crashed. I had to reopen everything and I haven't got that back up yet. But I think there's like 3 positions. One was the chief's secretary that we filled. And one was a planning assistant that was a promotion. So even though we filled the position, we still have a vacancy below it. And then I can get you the others, but it was just a handful. But we will definitely get that to you and very carefully work with you on the staffing levels to make sure that we only provide staffing where absolutely necessary.
Thank you. Councilmember Pacheco also mentioned earlier in his comments, our finances and, whether the analysis has been done, forecasting what our budget or expenditures might look like. And echoing what Councilmember Garcia stated, I'm very much in favor at this moment to just hold the hiring process and, literally look at each position one by one before we start hiring or providing, job offers. But, first I'll just ask that we look at that, the positions that you're going to send us before, before I go any further on that part.
Definitely.
Thank you. No further questions for personnel at this time. So we'll just move on to Public Works.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Thank you. This is Sam. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to update the council on what we're doing in terms of Public Works. And first and foremost, I want to say that I hope everyone is staying safe at home and keeping safe. So per the state and county orders, critical and essential infrastructure calls for Public Works and construction activities to continue. And I think that this is because it's clear that infrastructure work is vitally important for the nation's economy, health, and the public in general. So our number one priority has been to maintain vital infrastructure and services and keeping them operating safely. So this means we're maintaining essential infrastructure. We got our teams working and ensuring that our traffic signals are operating normally and as they should. Also, we are keeping an eye on the sewer system and the storm drains. Right now, sewers are taking a huge impact There's a lot of people flushing non-flushable wipes and stuff like that. So we're monitoring that. Street sweeping is continuing, and landscape maintenance and keeping the city clean, that's all continuing. We are still maintaining the city parks. We're working with utilities, and we are continuing any general construction work and working with contractors. All in all, we are doing this in a contactless manner. We're shifted all of our efforts to electronics, so we are leveraging technology to continue to provide these services. At this time, I have about 50% or 55% of staff reporting to work on a daily basis. The rest of the staff is telecommuting or on flex schedules. So at the beginning, when we were trying to get all of this together, I did notice that some of the staff, especially at the public, at the yard maintenance, were having trouble understanding what was going on. So I did meet with everyone and explain to them and give them direction, especially explaining the idea of what it means to flatten the curve. A lot of people didn't understand what that means and how we are all working together, a national mobilization to stay at home and lower the impact to our hospitals. So we did go through all of that. So I did explain to them the importance of practicing social and physical distancing. So we're all practicing that. On the engineering side, all engineering staff is working at one time or the other. We are coming in at least twice a week on a rotating or alternating schedule. We are responding to all calls and emails. When we're telecommuting, our calls and emails are forwarded home. We check the voicemails and respond via email and phone. We have at least one person between the building department and the engineering department. We have at least one person come in answering the main lines. Our extensions are being forwarded to our cell phones when we're telecommuting. Inspections are scheduled and performed with 0 personal interactions. That means the inspector goes to the site, performs his inspection, and then reports back to the contractor or developer via phone or email, so there's no contact there. We are still issuing permits and performing plan checks. However, that's all been shifted to an electronic platform. We do accept physical submittals, and those are accepted via a drop box right outside City Hall. Those plans that we do get physical are quarantined and then sanitized before they're routed to staff. We are taking payments via credit card or by mail. Utility companies are billed on a monthly basis, so that's helped us out. Project management and inspection of CIP projects continue on a daily basis, but that's all done through a virtual system such as Zoom or FaceTime. And as mentioned before, the engineering division prepared bus shelter posters and installed those all over the various bus shelters in the city. And we are continuing to work closely with utility companies as they continue to provide essential services for residents. Also, the engineering staff is continuing to work on all projects related to grants, and Manny mentioned Prop 68. We're still working on those projects and making sure that we're meeting all those deadlines, that they're all still in place. So we're working hard on that. On the maintenance side, staff is working on a skeleton crew and doing flex schedules. They are now practicing social and physical distancing. That means that we've limited vehicles to one person per vehicle. Before there would be teams of 2 or 3. Now it's only 1 person per vehicle. They are the guys down there. They're sanitizing the facility on a daily basis every morning. They are also sanitizing all vehicles before leaving to the field. Street landscape and maintenance is continuing. However, due to recent rains and ideal temperatures, there's going to be a lot of weeds, and with the limited staff, it might be noticeable, but we are working hard to get to it and make sure that we take care of it and keep the city looking clean. Street sweeping is continuing per schedule as normal, but we are not towing or citing anybody with just sweeping around them. We have 2 guys that rotate that duty, so that's being done just as normal. Bulky item pickups do continue, but similar to landscape, there might be a noticeable increase in it because we're trying to get to it at all times, but we are working with waste management, and we're also not citing anybody or sending any citations to the home, so we're relaxed on that. Parks are being maintained. Park restrooms are still, they're being open to the residents every day for washing or using their hands, and public works staff is assisting facilities with monitoring and making sure that the stocking of soap and all of that is there. Homeless encampments, we have suspended homeless encampment cleanups, but we are monitoring the porta potties that were installed there. They're being done 3 times a week, and Public Works is monitoring and ensuring that that's getting done. In terms of public work projects, we do have some projects going on right now, but we have been getting a lot of concerns from the residents regarding the construction work. They're expecting it to stop. So we are educating the public on the importance of the work and sending out notices and flyers and talking to them. We're getting an unprecedented number of calls regarding that, so we're addressing that. We are working very hard to minimize impacts to the residents while we're doing the work. That means we're accommodating for parking. We're not towing or citing, we're just working around it. We're providing noticing, and we're minimizing as best we can the noise. We're not allowing any essential cutoff of utility services like electricity or water due to the project. So we try to work with our contractors and developers to move that down and avoid that. But if it's deemed necessary for the best interest of public health and safety, then we do work with the utility company on that. We're ensuring that residents have and maintain access to their property at all times, 24 hours a day, so we're not impacting them going in and out of the house if they have to. So currently the projects that are going on is the Main Avenue Phase 1 project that is from Olive to Arrow. Puente Avenue is winding down. We're closing that project, but it's still ongoing. We're going to be installing new bus shelters along Puente. And then next week or the week after, we're going to commence the Main Avenue, Pacific Avenue corridor project. That is from Los Angeles to the South City limit. All in all, we're trying to keep all of these vital infrastructure services operating. I do want to thank Daniel, the chief, and his team for providing some mask and PPE equipment that we desperately needed. I also want to thank Manny and his team for providing sanitizers, wipes, and gloves. So we're here to support the rest of the staff, and that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes, Vice Mayor, Council Pacheco.
Please.
Director of Public Works, so we're on track with the traffic control and lighting program on Ramona and Main and Pacific. I know that late last year, you were talking about purchasing the equipment ahead of time and then getting the contractor. So is all that still going to be completed on time?
Yes. So we are working on putting that project together. We have already finalized all the renderings and designs and plans. Now we're putting a plan together that we can bid out for the project. So that project is continuing as planned, hasn't slowed down.
All right, thank you.
Quick question, Sam, Paul Hernandez. You mentioned that we're not providing notifications for illegal dumping. Is that correct?
No, so we are providing the notifications. We're tagging, we're notifying residents. What we're not doing is we're not citing them. So if they don't pick up the illegal dump, there's usually an $80 fine in their bill through Waste Management. So we've ceased that practice for the time being. So we're still tagging them and we're still letting them know, but we're not citing them. So if they don't pick it up, we end up picking it up.
Okay, my concern is I don't want people to take advantage of, our good nature. So I would ask if, again, just one opinion is, if we're going to that facility or to that location or home, more than twice, that I would reinstate the fine process. Because, that's taking away the very few essential services and staff and their time away from other duties throughout the city.
Okay, yeah, definitely. We can look into reinstating it.
Thank you. Anybody else, please, for Mr. Gutierrez?
Vice Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you. So Sam, I definitely want to, say that I'm glad that you guys are using, or your staff is using, the PPE where it's needed. And I'm really glad to hear that, actually, because I know that the conversation right now is, should we be using masks? Shouldn't we? And I like the idea that for staff that's, interfacing with the public, I think that we should be taking those precautions. And why not? Better to be safe than sorry. So glad to hear that. My question is regarding the bus benches. Are we doing any power washing of the bus benches? Because I know that our residents are still using public transportation.
Yes, thank you. I did forget to mention that that we are maintaining the shelters. We're washing them down, power washing them, and cleaning them and sanitizing them. And the transit program, which is run by the engineering division, is continuing, but we are experiencing an all-time low in ridership. But the buses themselves are also being sanitized. And from my discussions with the operator, they are practicing social distancing and physical distancing when they're in the bus. So the bus driver does say, hey, stay away 6 feet per hour. But we are at an all-time low in terms of ridership.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad that we're definitely taking this serious here in our city, and glad to hear that that's happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Any other council members or Mr. Mayor? Seeing none, we'll move on to Finance Department. Ms. Rose Tam, please. Ms. Rose Tam?
Mark, can you unmute Rose? There we go.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to update everyone, and we've been coordinate reimbursement tracking with the EOC and set up special project account for all city departments to track all costs related to the COVID-19 projects or courses. And we only have essential staffing levels reporting to work. This includes one accounts payable staff and one cashier, one accountant, and one payroll specialist. But the payroll specialists only come to the city hall during the payroll week, and one intern and one accounting manager or myself here in City Hall. Majority of the staff is telecommuting. And we continue process the AP and mail checks out as usual. And we also process payroll, and employees with direct deposit will receive their payroll ACH payment as usual. Paper checks will be mailed to employees due to the closure of City Hall and special measures being taken to protect the safety of all employees. We also suspended the passport service with the approval of Los Angeles Passport Agency. We informed the business license inquiries that we accept applications and payments by mail. We also sent out 354 business license renewal from the due date of March in February. And we received 279 renewal payments 2 days ago. And we also sent out 293 business license renewal for April due date. And this time we inserted the extension notice for business that are facing hardship. Finance also completed and submitted the fiscal 2018-19 single audit yesterday to meet the original required due date of March 31st, and we do not need to file for extension at this time. We also completed the review of RAPs for 2020 and 21, which approved by the City Council in January with the State Department of Finance just in time, and reconcile the prior years for the successor agency, and were able to reallocate $220,000 sales tax back to the, and thank you very much. If questions, I'm glad to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Tam. Any questions for her?
Yes, Vice Mayor. Director Rose, first I want to thank you. I know I always see you working late and really getting a lot of the work done that's required and meeting all the special requirements that the government has for cities to meet. And I appreciate all the hard work you and your staff have done, especially during these difficult times. I just wanted to ask you on, as far as the state audit, what is the status on that, or where are we at? Have they completed their audit and reported back yet?
Yes, they completed the review, and we had a meeting with them a few weeks ago with Shannon, and they wrote us the draft audit comments and recommendations, things like that. And Shannon and I and other departments are working to respond to them. And we shall finish this hopefully within 2 weeks. Shannon, my comment.
Yeah, I've actually been in touch in regards to the state controller's audit. They sent us a draft, and that our time to reply basically was right in the middle of this crisis that we're going through. So I've let them know that we're asking for an extension. I've let them know about the county's order, because they're in Sacramento. Let them know about the county's order until April 19th, and I just let them know that we're going to need more time to respond to that, because we're dealing with this crisis at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Rose. This is Paul Hernandez. A question that I have is, can you, I think Councilmember Pacheco also stated this earlier on in his comments, this evening. Can you create a a burn rate report for us so we understand what our finances are going to look like, and begin to forecast out if the various revenues that we count on are delayed or postponed, and how that will look like for us as it comes to not only for our salaries of our staff, but all the other obligations that we have to do, and really understand what the number is to keep the essentially the lights on and us operating at a bare minimum. If this were to last longer than say a month or two or even 3 months, I think we would all appreciate seeing that type of report and having that type of discussion, because I think that's going to provide a little bit more context in regards to how we approach this, and also understanding the some of the federal monies and how that will help cover some of the costs, not all, but some of the costs moving forward.
Yes, actually, I am planning to implement this in my mid-year budget projection. I almost completed my mid-year budget and going to present it to the city council in February. However, this COVID-19 came, and so I did not submit that to the city council. I plan to revise the projection, factoring in the impact that might have in the city, especially from the sales tax and other revenues. Hopefully, I can present that to you in the next city council meeting. If not, then at the very beginning or the end of April or sooner. But however, I plan to present that in the next coming up city council meeting.
Thank you very much, Rose. Are there any other questions for Ms. Tam? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next department, the Community Development Department. Mr. Ben Martinez, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. I'm going to give a quick update on the 5 divisions in the Community Development Department. I'm going to start out with the Building Division. The Building Division, we are trying to keep all plan checking and permitting services open to contractors and the general public, of course, with minimal physical interaction as possible. We are still providing building inspections Monday through Friday as normal. We've updated our website to contain all of the information related to permitting and procedures. We're also accepting electronic submittals for solar and smaller projects, and we're doing permits by email, and we're also allowing the drop off of plans at a box at the door. Mail-in for check payments and also credit cards are now being accepted. So essentially everything's happening in the Building Division as it was in the past, but we're trying to do it with this minimal amount of impact or physical contact with anyone. Pretty much the same thing with the Planning Division, receiving and reviewing plans electronically. We're processing all entitlement applications for commercial and residential projects electronically. And we're also being responsive to all daily voicemails, emails, and so forth regarding planning and zoning inquiries. We're also planning to hold the Planning Commission meeting just as we are here via Zoom on April 8th. Onto the Housing Division. We did participate in the CARES Act webinar conducted by the California League of Cities. The CARE Act was passed March 27th, and the bill, as we understand it, is to be enacted within the next 30 days. There's still a lot of uncertainty about the funding, how it's going to be essentially divvied out. We're going to be following that situation very closely, and the city manager has instructed me to put together a briefing I will be putting that together. Of course, we don't want to give out bad information. I don't want to give out bad information to anyone. So we really need to be a little bit patient as this CARES Act, which is a magnificent, response to COVID-19. It's a magnificent response, and it's a lot of funding for states and cities and so forth. But we do need to be patient about how the information comes out and how we can access the funds. But we will be working on that. Just a little heads up, the City Council will be considering the CDBG and home funds, the annual plan, at the April 15th meeting. This is still subject to extension by HUD because all these HUD processes are potentially being extended, and we're looking at this day by day. We are going to receive, as the city manager alluded to, approximately $500,000. I do have the exact figure, $564,798 in CDBG funds. That would be extra funds that we're getting just because of the COVID situation. But that's not an exact figure that has been verified by HUD. We're trying to verify it, and we still don't have details on, how quickly we'll get that money and so forth. So it's just fresh off the press. We're definitely going to get some more funding here, but we need to wait and understand the details. But in general, like again, the city manager explained, the public services cap has been waived, so we can spend that money essentially as we desire to assist low mod families and so forth in our community. It's being done quietly, but we're working very hard to keep our Section 8 rental assistance program going. There's a lot that needs to happen, the annual recertifications. We've put off inspections for the Section 8 program as much as possible to try to, again, decrease that human-to-human contact, and HUD does allow us to do that. But we've been really working hard to keep our Section 8 program going because, as we all know, that is keeping people off the street. That is housing low-income families that are in desperate need of housing. Mcniel Manor is the small senior development there by Morgan Park. We've checked in with those 12 seniors and making sure that all their basic needs are being met, and it does appear they are. So we're happy to report that. Rental stabilization ordinance. We had our first 2 landlord and tenant outreach meetings. They went well. We have released a registry form for landlords to start registering their units with us, but we're extending that deadline to June 1st, again, due to COVID. Housing eviction ordinance, urgency ordinance was signed by the CEO. This will prevent residential evictions, and it was done in addition to what the action that was already taken by the state of California, the governor. We stay in daily consultation with HUD regarding the myriad of issues related to COVID. And I will now move on to the Community Enhancement Division, formerly Code Enforcement. We're being more than ever being business and resident friendly. We're disseminating business resource information and COVID-19 related public health and safety guidance to residents and businesses. We are doing daily controls, but we're keeping it to quality of life types of issues, curb appeal, no notices of violations, and no citations. Lastly, in the Economic Development Division, we are providing resource information to the public and business owners to assist through this economic crisis. There's a lot of information out there. We're trying to sift it down. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel because there's a lot of information. We're just trying to sift it down and get it out there and essentially share information that's already been shared by others. There's a business resource guide that we put together, and we're putting that on the city website, Facebook, and we're getting that out as much as we can into the community. We've also created a restaurant guide to promote local dining takeout options That again is being disseminated out into the community. Communication with development projects. We have several projects that the city has begun with various developers. You might remember the affordable housing projects, the housing project there by Morgan Park. So we've made contact with those developers. Everything is moving forward still. We're just making sure that we're not losing contact with them. Of course, all development projects are taking a step back and looking at the situation because there's so much doubt. They do need to understand how long this is going to last and how it's going to impact the project, but we're staying in close contact with them, and none of them have said that they're going to pull out of any of their projects. This would include, again, the housing project next to Morgan Park in the parking lot. This would include the affordable housing developments right here across the street from City Hall with Rome Development. And this would also include the industrial development over by the Public Works Yard. As a matter of fact, that project with MG Development, Mike Galanakis, that project will be on the Planning Commission agenda on the 8th of this month. We've also provided press releases regarding grocery store hours, utility information, SBA disaster loan links, and hours for important retailers. And also, again, we continue to share any information we're getting from the federal, state, and county levels with our partners, the Baldwin Park Business Association, San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership, and other chamber partners in the region. Thank you very much, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Ben, I think I didn't hear you mention, I think you just finished up a restaurant guide to publish too, to let the residents know what restaurants are open and serving either to go or takeout food. Is that ready?
Yes, sir. That was completed and is now, it should be on our website and Facebook, and we're trying to get it out into the community as much as possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please.
Yes, Ben Martins, want to thank you very much. You conduct yourself in a very professional manner. Your leadership exemplifies the quality of the city of Baldwin Park as well. So thank all your staff members. I know you're all part of the big team.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else for Mr. Okay, while we'll wait for others. Ben, I have a few items. Can I ask if we haven't created the frequently asked questions, or perhaps do a recording of and do it as a webinar for the RSO, for the rent stabilization ordinance. I know that earlier in the week I did ask for Shannon to see if we could add on to that, or to our emergency declaration, where we are able to postpone the rent increase, because currently under the RSO, in the month of, I believe, April 3rd, landlords would be allowed to increase rents per our ordinance. And I certainly would want to kick that off. So if we could, talk about that, Shannon, in a second. And then the other thing also is, in regards to, the various fundings and so forth that you're looking at proposing, I would ask if we could be a little bit, think outside the box, in the sense of, we have a lot of small businesses that may be eligible for the SBA loans, and also local loans through their own financial institutions here in Baldwin Park. But there are also quite a bit of small businesses that will not be eligible for those loans. And I'd like for us to think about, what we can do to help mitigate that on a short-term basis. I don't need a response now, but just, as we're looking at this, to also think about, a handful of businesses, because again, they are, the fabric of our community, and they're a driving force, in which they, many of them, support local jobs here in our community, in the small numbers of, between 3 to 10. Not in the hundreds, at least in the way I see small businesses. The federal government sees small businesses as 500 employees and less. I am certainly not speaking to those. I'm speaking more to the, what I'll consider the mom and pop shops that employ, less than 20 or even smaller than that, less than 10. So if we could just think about that as we move forward.
Yes, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Councilmember.
Then I know you touched on the CARES funding. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'd be happy to tell you a little bit more, but there's so much to it. I was going to provide a briefing separate from today, but I will tell you maybe just one thing interesting about it is you got, for instance, under the coronavirus relief fund, you have $139 billion, and each state is allocated a minimum of $1.25 billion. But there's no provision right now that the state has to share it with cities that have a population that do not exceed 500,000. So that's one of the things where, again, we need to look into what does that mean? Is the state going to share with us, or are they not? Are they going to be required to, or are they going to voluntarily do so? But a lot of money there, but is it going to filter down to our city? And we need to understand that. But again, this was just passed on March 27th. That's just a few days ago. So we'll definitely, we're monitoring this. I will share a summary from the National League of Cities with you today. I'll send it out to the entire council and the E-team. I think it's the best summary I've seen. It's easy to read, and I think it contains all the vital information. And we're going to continue to follow this closely, obviously.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm looking at my notes from the webinar that I watched it too. In addition to what Ben mentioned, 150 billion relief fund for reimbursements for cities and states for COVID-related expenses, in addition to the 139 billion that will go to state and local municipalities. Additional 11 billion to District of Columbia and the tribes. And then we talked about previously $2 billion in CDBG funding, which I think that's the best indication we have now that we're going to receive that $560,000 that Ben mentioned. But there is a lot of information in those bills, and I think we can get that summary out to you soon.
And Shannon, we're gonna, because things are gonna be changing over the next few weeks. So we're probably gonna develop a plan and then seek reimbursement, or then wait for the CDBG funding, right?
So a lot of the COVID-related expenses, we are tracking for reimbursement. Of course, we don't want to wait around and have our residents be hungry because it's going to be, they told us 30 days till we get that money. But I think if we can get the public hearing going April 15th and include that funding, if we have enough information in it, the council could appropriate or give us the authority to appropriate those fundings. So the 15% service cap, that's the amount that we used for the service groups, the Church of the Redeemer Food Bank. So as I said earlier, that's been waived. So in theory, we could use whatever percent up to 100% that the council desires of that additional funding for funding service groups or such as food banks. But yes, we're not going to wait around for that funding. We're going to, move ahead with whatever we need to do and seek reimbursement wherever we can.
Okay, that's good to know, because I do think that the food issue, that we should look at that with some urgency, and then, seek reimbursement or whatever appropriations are coming down, are funneling down to the city. but I would like to just stress the urgency of, I don't even think we should wait until April 15th to, take a vote on our food plan. I'd like to see that sooner. And then maybe on April 15th, by then we'll be talking about other collaborations with the county perhaps, and what resources we would allocate for, let's say, like tests or, those types of collaborations.
Definitely. And Ben, maybe something for your staff to look into on the CDBG funding, if it can be spent ahead and then apply for reimbursement.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Martinez before we move on to our city attorney? Seeing none, we will move on to our city attorney, Robert Tafoya. You're on the floor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hernandez. First of all, you should know that the LA County Superior Courts are closed except for emergency TROs and other kinds of emergencies up until April 19th. So all of the trial-related and court-related matters are on hold. For example, the Ellers case is on hold. The Dalewood case is on hold. Hadley's on hold. The Murph is on hold. All of those cases, nothing is happening in the actual courthouse. Now, in terms of litigation cases, litigation continues to occur. So we continue to litigate those cases, but anything that requires like a deposition, personal appearances, court hearings, things of that nature, those kinds of things are not going forward. In many of the cases, for example, like the Ellers case, there have been some dates that have been moved off to late April. I anticipate that they might be moved off again. So that's going to be a very fluid situation. In terms of the public records requests that we receive, the city has sent a letter to all of the requesters that we are suspending our Public Records Act requests. We did that based on the governor's order that only essential workers would be at the city, and the people that are doing our Public Records Act collection and requests are not considered essential workers. So based on that government order, we have suspended our PRAs. Now, there are other cities in the state that have done the same thing. Not everybody, but some of them. In addition, there are water districts and other government entities that are also suspending their Public Records Act requests. In terms of my office, we continue to respond to requests from the city and continue to respond to requests from the public. We respond to RSO questions during this emergency from landlords and others. We continue to send out letters and to continue the enforcement process with our cannabis operators. So we're sending out those letters and continuing to collect monies from them from a legal perspective when necessary. And all of my staff are now working from home. They've all been outfitted with computers and are able to work virtually. So our operations continue, and we're still available for the city, whatever you may need, other than, of course, as I mentioned, the court proceedings and things of that nature. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tafoya? Okay, Robert, and perhaps this is for Shannon. Can you just please, for full transparency, can you just please advise the rest of the council and the audience in regards to some of the action that we are taking for postponements of the rent increases under the RSO?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. We are working with Shannon. I've got the first draft of the proclamation. It will be finalized tomorrow, April 2nd, and Shannon will be able to declare that additional order tomorrow before the April 3rd deadline. And so we are going to do an emergency executive order based on the emergency powers that the council gave the CEO. And so the CEO will be making an executive order tomorrow, freezing any rent increases during the pendency of this emergency.
And for which units are those, just for clarification?
Those units are going to be just for the controlled units that we have right now. We are looking at, and we may revise that for tomorrow and we may include all of the apartment units in the city of Baldwin Park, even those that are not covered under the RSO. And that will ultimately come out tomorrow.
Thank you. Does any council member have any questions regarding that particular item?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Councilmember Avila, please.
is there any way, because of this emergency, that we can add the homes and the condos at this time, just for the purpose of the emergency?
That is a very good question. I believe Robert is looking into that to see if that is something that is viable. I think there was some questions around that already too, but very
Okay,
good question.
perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Tafoya? Thank you. Seeing none, Shannon, I'll kick it over to you so we could add the last item of the urgency item that we're going to be discussing in regards to Cal OES.
Yes, and this item was brought to our attention after the posting of the agenda, and it is critical to get that this resolution approved. This is for the city to apply for federal assistance and requesting public assistance due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we've sent you all this staff report and the resolution, and we would need you to approve adding it to the agenda as an urgency. And Robert might want to comment on that, and then we request your approval of the resolution.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So yes, this is coming up as an urgency item. It will require a 4/5 vote to put it on the agenda. If it does pass a 4/5 vote and it's on the agenda, then it only requires a simple majority to pass it at that point. And you and Shannon have already laid the foundation for an urgency, which it came up after the posting of the agenda, and it's a critical matter that is very time sensitive for the city.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the designation of resolution Cal OES 130 and project assurance for federal assistance Cal OES 89 and request for public assistance FEMA 009-0-49 due to the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic DR number 4482 Cal OES ID 06-37-03666. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by our illustrious mayor. Thank you very much. Shannon, do you want to share with us a little bit more on this, or should we just take a vote?
No, I have nothing else.
Thank you. That said, if I could ask for a quick roll call from Ms. Jean Ayala.
Well, Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So the earlier motion was to add it to the agenda. Now,
Right.
is this a motion to pass the item?
This is a motion to put it on the agenda.
Oh, okay, this is still to put it on the agenda.
Yes, the 4/5, we need a count.
Okay, thank you.
City Clerk, can you take a roll
Thank
call?
you. Mayor Pro Tem Paul Hernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Manuel Lozano,
Yes.
Councilmember Monica Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Alejandra Avila,
Yes.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now we are going to take a roll call vote to adopt this resolution as stated earlier in my comments.
Vice
Councilmember-
Mayor, can we change the 666 to like 667?
I would like to do that, but that is part of the Cal OES ID number that they add.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's just such an ominous number.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Ms. Ayala, please, if we can please take the roll call for us.
Mayor Pro Tem, are you motioning to approve?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll
And
second.
seconding?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Paul Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Monica Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Alejandra Avila,
Yes.
Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Manuel Lozano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has been adopted, excuse me, the resolution has been adopted. Thank you very much. And from that, unless we have any other comments or for our directors under the open session, I will be moving over to our public comments section in which our city clerk, Ms. Jean Ayala, will be reading some comments into the record. Is there any other questions for our directors at this time before I move on?
Yes, Vice Mayor, I just have a comment
Yes, sir.
in general that I'd like to make. And I think that looking forward on the COVID-19, I think once we get around over the peak period of COVID-19, and I guess when we get to some sort of normal state, whatever that looks like in the future, I think that our staff needs to also look at a Baldwin Park COVID-19 economic response plan. I think that staff needs to plan for economic relief for businesses, residents that need jobs, and that are businesses that need some sort of relief. A lot of them have been closed down, and I talked to a lot of business owners, and they're at the point of bankruptcy. And so we need to kind of help them out. I think we do that by partnering with other agencies, our federal partners, our state partners, our county partners, and other agencies that are out there that have offered support. I think we need to put together a package that helps our businesses and helps our local residents. I think the goal is to help our residents to be able to pay for rent, groceries, utility bills, and just basically being able to put food on the table, which I think after this is over, we're gonna have a lot of issues with unemployment and our community being able to afford just basic housing needs. I think we need to connect with our government aid for local businesses, connect our jobs to local businesses. We need our residents to have benefits like better childcare, being able to pay their mortgage, have mortgage furloughs for our businesses, our residents, have a better rent furlough program so that they're not being evicted and having foreclosures. And I think this is the future that we're looking at, and that we need to plan better for that and have this for all of our residential units. I think we have to look at healthcare for those that don't have it, especially those that have are going to be impacted by the COVID-19 virus. We need to really sit down and look at how we're going to help them. But we need to have better support for our women's shelters and our sexual assault centers. And we just need to better support our working families here in the city. So I think as we're going through this process, we also need to look at a better economic development plan, recovery for COVID-19, and to look at some sort of support. So I just want to, hopefully staff could start looking into that. I'll bring it up at another council meeting. And I also wanted to thank our chief of police for doing a good job. I spoke with them several times during this process. And also for Dan Rodriguez, I think if there was an employee that stepped forward, an exemplary employee that really came out and did a lot, I'd say, Dan also showed a lot of support. So I want to thank him. I mean, all the staff members, but I want to thank Dan because I think he really came out, sent out a lot of emails, and just kept on top of this it's kind of a historical issue, but yet a very dangerous issue for all of our community. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pacheco. Anybody else? Seeing none, Miss City Clerk Ayala, can you please read our comments into the record, please?
Yes, I have two. The first one, good afternoon, Mayor and the City Council. My name is Danny Damian, resident and business owner. Number one, regarding the parking enforcement during street sweeping days, will this be extended, and if so, for how long? There are many people that continue to ask regarding this, and since it looks like kids will not be going back to school this school year, can you extend it for 2 to 3 months to see what happens in the meantime? And this way people have an exact date of when this will expire. Number two, with COVID-19 impacting everyone, including small businesses in the city, do you guys have a resource center or resource website where people can call or check for resources such as small business assistance, senior or low income assistance? With the stimulus package that was signed by the president, all undocumented families will not receive a stimulus check, which means that if one person on a tax return has an ITIN number and all others have a social security number, everyone is disqualified to receive a stimulus check. These residents will not receive the financial assistance they need in order to survive the stay-at-home order. Please see if you can put a resource center together for people to access them easily, as well as work with our nonprofit organizations and faith-based organizations to see what resources they all have available. Three, lastly, regarding enforcement of the stay-at-home order, what is the city doing to keep non-essential businesses closed, people from gathering at parks or public places, or having a party or gathering of more than 10 people and not keeping the social distance? Will the police department be enforcing this? And if so, will they be issuing fines or warnings? Unfortunately, many people are not taking this seriously, and we all need to do our part to follow the stay-at-home orders. Thank you. And the second one is from Ralph Galvin. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and members of the public. My name is Ralph Galvan. I'm a Baldwin Park resident. I would like to thank the ongoing efforts between the City of Baldwin Park and the Baldwin Park Unified School District in ensuring ensuring students are fed during the time of these school closures. I would like to mention that at the last Valley County Water District Board meeting, I asked the board and general manager not to conduct any water service shutoffs, as many are in tough times. Please continue working with the Valley County Water District to ensure no shutoffs take place. A reminder to my community to complete your census, as today is Census Day. And last, according to the County of Los Angeles Public Health, there has been 2 cases of COVID-19 in Baldwin Park. Could you elaborate on the 2 cases at all? I hope that all of you are staying safe. Thank you for your time. Thank you. And that's the end of the public comment.
Thank you very much, City Clerk Ayala. With that, I believe most of those questions were answered. If not, all of them are addressed or can be addressed through our city's website. And I believe also the Chief of Police also mentioned the code enforcement in regards to ticketing individuals during this time for parking restrictions, for clean sweep and so forth. With that, before I move over to adjournment, I do also want to recognize our city treasurer, Marie Contreras, who has been on the phone and is listening and participating remotely, as we all are. With that, I will move to adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
Second by the mayor. All in favor, say aye.
You have a first and a second, and we'll all say aye.
Aye.
Aye, there we go. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and for participating in this very fun and unique remote participation of our city council. Have a good night.
Viva Baldwin Park.
Good night. Be safe, everybody.
That's right. You forgot. Viva Baldwin Park. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Be
night.
safe.
I
Bye-bye.
thought there was
Thank
a
you.
is there a closed session?
Good night.
Thank you, IT, for all
session.
your
Is there
help
any
with this.
is there any
Thank
closed
you.
session?
No,
No closed session.
No closed session, Ricardo.